Hey, welcome. This is the Legendary Strength Podcast, and today is a special day because we are doing the first of many interviews that will be taking place on this call. And today I have with me my good friend and longtime training partner off and on, Tyler Bramlett. Thanks for joining me today, Tyler.
Sure thing, Logan. Thanks for having me on the call. I'm really excited.
Yeah. Well, if people have been following me for a long time, it's likely they've seen you in some of my videos, like the partner kettlebell juggling, or just here and there you've made appearances. But for the people that are not familiar with you, do you want to just give a brief background?
Sure, yeah. I'm like the underground cameo guy in the videos, right?
Yeah.
So for, brief background, I don't want to waste everybody's time and make them fall asleep. But, generally speaking, me and you, we started training together way in the past. Unlike you, who's a relatively lean guy, I was a relatively fat guy. And my genetics just kind of like me being chubby. So my goal was always just to get stronger, get more muscle, and kind of lean up a lot. And over the years, I've made a pretty significant change in my body composition as well as my strength. So, I started out with bodybuilding and power bodybuilding. I did what everybody thought they were supposed to do when they looked up training, and they went out and bought the Encyclopedia of Modern Bodybuilding from Arnold. And then, of course, the next logical step is to flip straight to the competitive section and follow the programs and the competition guides, which I did for several weeks before getting crazy sick with the flu and realizing that maybe that was a little bit over my level at that point.
Wait, so, you're saying you weren't an elite bodybuilder at 17, having just gotten into training?
Yeah. I made all the mistakes in the book. That's where I feel like I've kind of learned the most from, just all the mistakes. So anyways, went from the bodybuilding background, started doing some power bodybuilding stuff, and then one day I'm leg pressing. I'm trying to work up to my 900-pound leg press, and I go to work at a blind shop. I wasn't always a fitness guru per se. And I leave early to ride my bike home, and as I'm riding my bike home, I'm just enjoying the day. I'm ready to go hit the beach and stuff, and out of nowhere, bam! From the outside, I just get hit by a SUV. So that kind of started like the whole functional movement train, because I totally wrecked my knee, had to go through surgery, ended up in a wheelchair and on crutches, and wasn't even allowed to walk for 12 weeks. So as you can imagine, I'm looking down at my legs, and I have rather thick legs just kind of naturally. I look down, and my left side is shriveled, right? It's like 5 inches smaller than my right side. And so that's what kind of got me down this functional fitness train and started doing things with bodyweight training, kettlebells, and a lot of kind of tips and tricks towards rehabbing things like knee injuries over the years. And, I've just, like I said, I've made every mistake in the book, and it's helped me to train my personal clients and some athletes just how to kind of do things the right way, how to do things in a progressive way, in a much smarter way than I originally approached them myself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, actually, in my last podcast, I was talking about a recent injury I had. I'm fortunate in that none of my injuries seem to have been nearly as bad as yours, and that wasn't the only time you ran into some knee problems.
Yeah, it certainly wasn't. No, yeah, about a year ago, I had decided to rejoin an adult gymnastics class. And I hold my fingers in quotes when I say adult, because the next oldest person there was 16 years old.
Yeah, this is the same class that I have attended in the past.
Yeah. So the big mistake I made is years ago when I was doing the class, I was probably 2 years post-rehab after my knee injury, right? And so there were still things that kind of hurt a little bit here and there, but I'd done such a good job at rehabilitating my left leg that when I went back this time around, I was just flying. I was punching, I was flying, I was doing flips higher than ever I thought I could, and I was like, I was just feeling great, right? I've been doing a lot of Olympic lifting, a lot of lower body training, so that's what helped me build
This was the first day back, right?
This is the very first day back.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm jumping and doing twists and tricks and stuff, and I'm doing a 360 punch to a dive roll, which I later renamed. I'll tell you that name in a second. And I'm doing the punch 360, and I can't seem to string them together, right? So I'm doing the 360, and I land, and I can't seem to immediately bounce into the dive roll. And so I keep thinking, just punch. And the coach is like, just punch harder. So on the last run, I'm like, I'm going to punch so fucking hard, nobody knows what's coming, right? And I did. So I jump up, and I come down, and I punch so hard, my knee just goes, brrr, and it just swirls in a circle, and I collapse to the ground. And, long story short, I ended up kind of devastating my knee and completely blowing it out. It was actually a much worse injury than the original one. So that happened, And I later renamed that move a fairy twist, just because it was not impressive.
It wasn't an epic move at all.
Yeah. I keep trying to tell people a lie, but I'm just not a guy who lies very well. So I just, you know what, I was doing a fairy twist, and I blew my knee up again. But guess what? I've learned a lot over the last year that has helped contribute to my training and the training of others, especially in terms of taking your time and moving through things properly. And it's going to be a long road for me to get this thing fully back to normal, but it's coming around. It definitely is coming around, and mark my words, within a year or two, you guys are going to never know I injured either one of my knees. So, yeah.
That's excellent. So, that led into the genesis, and some people will be familiar with you listening to this. Recently just you released your Warrior warm-up, and a lot of people have been getting great results with that and a lot of great feedback. But you've come up with something new, this lower body PM3 method. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, we talked a lot about kind of the knee injuries and stuff like that. So that's kind of been a passion of mine for a while now. And another
knee
thing
injuries?
that I do, well, no, not knee injuries. Making people move better so they don't get injured is a passion of mine.
Okay. Glad we cleared that up.
The reason why I get so excited about this is because I've consulted with a lot of people. I didn't mention, but I run some boot camp style programs, and I've met with a lot of people. I'll easily say that I've seen probably 2,000 people do squats in front of me under like my critique, like, you know, I'm trying to fix their form, right? So I have a lot of experience tweaking people's form and technique, and it's so common. It's so common, Logan, that I see people come in, and I just say, the first thing I always say when I'm asking them to squat, just give me your squat, like show me what you would do, right? And their natural movement is shit, right? It's just complete garbage. And they're like, and I say, oh, does your left knee hurt? And they go, oh, how did you know? How come my left knee hurts when I jog or whatever, right? And so, you know, I had taken all these concepts from like rehab, obviously, from bodyweight training, from weighted training, and I kind of put them together in my mind, and I've been using that with my private clients and with my boot camp clients for several years now to get people really good results. And I'm not talking like, you know, namby-pamby, like I doubled my strength results. I'm talking like 5 times their strength. I'm talking people who couldn't sit down in a chair and stand back up because they were so weak, being able to do full-range one-legged squats. That's the kind of results I want to see people get. And they do get that if you have a properly planned system. And that's where people fail. Is they, you know, like if somebody can't do a one-legged squat, what do? They just go for it over and over and over again. And they never get it, so that not only do they rehearse failure over and over again, but they eventually just give up. Oh, this is too hard. This is too hard. Nobody ever showed them a better way to learn how to do it, right? And so that's what I wanted to do with this system. And the whole kind of crux of this whole thing is what I've now called the PM3 method. And what that stands for is Progressive Movement 3. And so what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to steadily progress you in terms of your movement capacity in 3 areas. Okay? The first area is strength and stability. Okay? This is what most programs focus on. They focus on like the contractile tension of your muscles, adding weight, adding sets, adding reps, things like that, right? So strength is nothing new to anybody. I'm trying to focus on adding strength, plain and simple. The second component is interjecting flexibility and range of motion within your strength training. Now, that's the key difference right there, is a lot of people out there, you know, what do they tell you to do, Logan? They tell you to go lift weights, and then they tell you to go stretch, right? Mm-hmm. And there's nothing wrong with doing these things separately. I like a good stretch from time to time. But if you're not consistently trying to build your range of motion and your strength at the same time, then you're shortchanging your results. In fact, 9 times out of 10, I see people do the opposite. Right? They get their barbell back squat, and they do like ass-to-grass squats when they're warm-up sets. And as the weight gets heavier, what do? They cut the range of motion until they're doing partials, right?
Without meaning to do partials, yeah.
Yeah, without meaning to do it. Yeah, so they're doing like, you know, 50% reps with heavier weight. Check out me. I can do 315 for reps. Well, I wanted to teach people how to get strong through a full range of motion in a safe way, because that's kind of the real key behind this is you can just try to go as deep as you can with a lightweight, with a heavyweight, and you might not be well prepared for that. So there's like lots of flexibility, mobility components kind of interjected in this program. The final component of the PM3 method is balance and coordination, and this is something that people don't really focus on in their training. And it's really important that I tell you, this is not like stand on a Swiss ball and, pick your nose while you're lifting a dumbbell with the other hand, right? This isn't kind of some goofy, I don't want to say the word, but I'm going to, worthless balance training, right? This is some straight up, like how to move on one leg, how to move on two legs, how to move through full ranges of motion, how to start taming rotational movement, how to balance your body in several different planes at the same time. That's what I mean when I say balance. And when I say coordination, I mean complexity of movement, right? So it's not about, rubbing your belly and patting your head while you do your bodyweight squat. It's about taking your bodyweight squat and turning it into a split squat and turning your split squat into a walking lunge and then your lunge into an assisted pistol and then your pistol into a perfect one-legged squat and then into jumping and then the rotational drills and the shrimp squats and things like that. And so we're constantly trying to sophisticate the movements to make sure you get better results. And the key is every single exercise that I highlight in this series is trying to improve upon all three of those things. So not just like, we're just going to add some strength or we're just going to add some range of motion. I'm trying to take every step you take is going to be a little bit better than in all three of those things, right? So I took this system and I kind of put it together and I just created this big giant program that's all about how to train your lower body. I call it the Warrior Lower Body Training System, and it's going to teach you all the stuff I talked about in the PM3 method and how to get the best results with your lower body training.
Mm-hmm. This is stuff that I've been doing off and on, not exactly the same, but for the most part, same sort of principles following. One move I really liked in there, having just browsed through everything, was the rotational jumping pistols that you have in there. Did this come about just because that was an even harder version of the thing that blew out your knee, kind of?
Yeah, well,
getting the rotational movement in there.
I originally wrote this program down several months ago, and finally got it all on paper and on video and stuff. And the jumping rotational pistol to me was like a way of sophisticating your pistol to the point where you can properly load through rotational movement. And like I always say in all these manuals, like make sure the biomechanics are correct, right? And I know you're not like a huge fan of like, perfect biomechanics and this and that, but here's the deal. If you're jumping and rotating and you land and your knee is in a valgus collapse and your weight is on the ball of your foot, you're putting a shit ton more pressure on your knee joint than if you sink through your hip and your femur is going the same direction as your toes, right? I mean, that's just
yeah, I would agree with that. That's one move where you definitely want to have things in good position.
Yeah. And if you don't agree with it, then I wish I had a video of me flopping to the ground, because that's exactly what happened. I landed with my knee inward, and it just blew to pieces, right? Yeah. So looking at proper biomechanics and making sure that you are able to do the prerequisite exercise before moving on to these complicated exercises. And one of my recommendations is to be able to do 20 perfect one-legged squats with just your body weight before moving on to the jumping and the jumping rotational pistols, which I don't find very many people can do that, but the people that I know who can do that can move on to rotational pistols safely.
Mm-hmm. Right. So who would you say this is for and who is it not for?
Oh, excellent. Okay, so if you can do 20 jumping rotational pistols, if you're sufficient at Olympic lifting, you got good form and you can lift heavy weights, if you know dozens of different bodyweight, lower body exercises, if you know how to put together your own training programs and you're totally satisfied with the results you're getting, then this program's not for you. All right? Mm-hmm. Don't even look at it, even though it's a freaking insane deal, and I'll tell you about that in a second. But if you want to be able to do a one-legged squat and you've failed over and over again, if you had injuries in the past and you can't shake them, if you've had some knee injuries or something like that in the past and you can't shake them, there's a lot of information in this program that kind of really helps you get started from a foundational perspective, like learning how to fire the proper muscles, gain the requisite flexibility, learning how to move better through all these movements. Anybody who just wants to ascend the ladder of functional training, they just want to try the next exercise up. They want to learn how to do the Olympic lifts with competency in a planned progression, so they don't have to waste their time, just trying to throw a snatch overhead over and over again until their shoulders blow out, right? Mm-hmm. So it's really for people who just want to learn more about their lower body training. I include a bunch of workouts with it too, so you can check out some done-for-you workouts. I threw some fun names in there just to give you guys an idea of the type of training that I want you guys to be doing with your lower body.
Yeah. One thing I like about this too is you're combining the body weight exercises where really there is more of a focus on the coordination, balance involved, dynamic flexibility, as opposed to some of the weight exercises. I mean, that stuff's still in there, including the flexibility in different ways, but that's even more strength component. So really by bringing these two together, you really get the best of both worlds, because there are so many guys that, only do body weight training and, then they can't handle weights at all. But there's benefits you get with those weights, and by incorporating the things like you have the Olympic lifting in there. And I have to say, that's not something I've spent a lot of time doing, but just looking through your examples of how it's done, it was really good instruction for it.
Awesome. Yeah, I have a comment on that. And the reason why I kind of divided this thing up, right? So if you look at the system, it's got a foundational manual, which is what I've already told you about. It's trying to build the requisite flexibility, coordination, balance, range of motion, before even touching a lower body exercise. And I encourage people, go try and see if you can do the fifth level of the foundational series and tell me if you have perfect form in it. If you do, then great. You're probably not going to injure yourself. You're going to move forward. Everything's working fine. But if you have some flaws in your technique, those little tiny flaws in your foundation, it's like putting holes in the foundation of your house, right? One of these days, it's going to crumble. So I included that first foundational manual. And then instead of, like you said, just being like, I'm a bodyweight guy or I'm an Olympic lifting guy or a kettlebell guy or whatever, I just said, you know what, there's only two ways to train. One way is to make you better at moving yourself, okay? And the other way is to make you better at moving something outside of yourself. And so that's the way I wanted to program this thing. It's hey, move better with your body weight, make the exercises more complex. Those body weight things are slightly higher in repetition, so you get to build power and endurance at the same time, so you can use it. If you're like a runner or something like that, you'll build tons of power and endurance. And then the weighted exercises are just teaching you how to move external objects. So once you learn how to control both your body and external objects through or increasingly complex set of exercises, then you get some really freaking awesome results. And in the Done For You workout series, I do a 15 bodyweight only, just in case you're a bodyweight guy and you want to just do bodyweight workouts. I do 15 weighted only, just in case you're a weighted guy and you're not into bodyweight workouts. And then I include 15 hybrid workouts, which are my personal favorite, where you do some sort of lifting exercise mixed with some sort of bodyweight exercises. And that's the type of training I really feel gets the number one, best results out there.
Could you give the listeners an example of one of those workouts?
Yeah, well, I try to come up with some fun names, you know what I mean? One was squabatas, right? And so this is like a complete beginner bodyweight workout, and it's just bodyweight squats to a Tabata interval. So 20 seconds on, 10 seconds off for 8 rounds of just bodyweight squats. Now, if you're an advanced person, you're going to look at that workout and you're going to be like, oh, this is stupid. You know what I mean? That's too easy. But you might look at one of my more advanced workouts. What the heck's the name of that one? Something like the Vengeful Vendetta. I can't remember exactly what I named it. But anyways, point is, you do barbell full cleans, right? So full barbell cleans, working up to a max set of 1 rep at a 30-second interval, right? And there's detailed instructions to go into that. Followed by set a timer and see how fast you can get 20 assisted one-legged squats, right and left for 5 rounds, right? So that's and that's an intermediate workout. There's even more advanced ones than that. And I encourage you, if you don't think that's a hard workout, work up to a max power clean or a full clean or a deadlift, right, just to give you that same idea, right? And then go out there and try to do basically 100 one-legged squats left and right, even assisted, by using a TRX strap or using a pair of dowels pressed up against a wall or even a partner, right? And your legs will be burning for days, not to mention your heart rate through the roof.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so this is stuff that you not only do yourself, but you have your clients doing. What sort of results have they got off of the same methods that people will find in the system?
Sure, yeah. So one of the most common things I see with people is that they have a condition, I love calling it that, called glute amnesia, right? Mm-hmm. Which basically means, we sit, we walk, we don't sprint, we don't lift heavy. Most people just do lame stuff, and they don't ever do anything out there that's really high intensity or anything like that. And so what happens is if a muscle doesn't get used, you basically you lose your neural connection to that muscle. So somebody's glute stops working, right? Mm-hmm. And so when somebody's glute stops working, then they get to ask all the muscles kind of around the knee joint to do what the muscles around the hip joint are supposed to be doing. So I see a lot of people come in, they have what's called a valgus collapse. Basically means their femur internally rotates when they walk, when they squat, all this other stuff, right? Mm-hmm. And so the number one thing people got to do when they're building that foundation is get the proper muscles firing. And to me, that's get your foot firing properly, get your stomach firing properly, and get your ass firing properly, right? If you get those 3 components in the chain, you're going to have awesome results with the lower body training that you're doing. If you jump into doing like one-legged squats and you have tight hamstrings, tight ankles, and your glute doesn't fire, you're asking for injury, right? So this is what we kind of start everybody out on, is this simple kind of foundational exercises, teaching how to fire the proper muscles, and then a lot of stuff giving you the requisite mobility in order to be able to go into full range of motion positions with weight and with your body weight. So I see people all the time with this knee collapse, and depending on who they are, depending on what they did before, like I had a marathoner, and she was a real challenge because marathoners take a lot of steps wrong, and the more steps you take wrong, the harder it is to get them to do it right. The more steps you got to take to get it right. I know you've talked to our friend Chuck about that kind of concept, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So it took me 6 months to get her to fire her glute.
Wow.
Right? Fire her, just for the glute to fire. Now, that is a completely rare case. That's the longest I've ever seen it. And I would put her into a position where it was almost impossible not to fire your glute. And her leg would lift up, and her hamstring and her spinal erector would fire, and her glute would be completely off. Right? Huh. And it took a really long time to develop that connection. But once we did, then she started running better. She started walking better. And then we started working towards a one-legged squat. She's doing one-legged squats to a 16-inch box, right? So she's easing her way down. So that was something that was pretty stellar, going from somebody who had like some really like IT band issues, nasty knee issues, not being able to sit down on a chair, and then going to the point where they're damn near a one-legged squat. I've had tons of people build some pretty awesome results. Bill is one of the trainers that I work with, and he's actually in one of the videos too that I shot. He's a really strong guy now. But before he started working with me, he hadn't even heard of a one-legged squat, right? And at a recent event I did, we did kind of a competition where it was like, see how many one-legged squats you can do on one leg, and the rule was as soon as your other foot goes down, the set's over. Right? So you have to stand on one leg the whole time while you're just cranking out, set after set after set after set after set, right? Mm-hmm. And you're pretty much just, by the end, you're just doing a single and then resting for like 3 seconds and then repeating, right? He did 123 one-legged squats on his left leg alone.
That is
123. I've never even heard of somebody doing that much. I've heard of the other guy, like Steve Cotter was the one-legged squat guy in the past. I heard him doing like 80 or so. But incredible, just incredible, right? And those results came from him starting with basic movements, working up to the pistol, and then working up doing things like jumping pistols, weighted pistols, things like that. And then lo and behold, he went for a set of regular old pistols and pulled out 123 out of his hat, right? Which to me I think is...
Yeah, curious to find how many I could do. I've never really tried a max all-out set.
38. That's me, 38.
Yeah. And that's really good. I mean, most people can't even come close to one, so like, if you're breaking 20, you're pretty solid in elite class compared to most people.
Absolutely agree.
Yeah. Okay, so I guess we should tell people, I mean, having talked about this whole bunch, people are probably imagining this system's costing a lot of money, but you have quite a special deal on it.
Yeah, man. I like nothing more than to kind of share my concepts with people. I really want people to reshape the way they're thinking about their training because, to be honest, I'm just sick of the bullshit that's out there. I'm just 100% sick of the bullshit that's out there. So I took this program and put it together. It's 45 done-for-you workouts, foundational training manual complete with pictures, bodyweight training manual complete with pictures, weighted training manual complete with pictures, and I'm probably going to throw in a little bonus in there in the next few days. I'll keep you informed on that, Logan. But all of that is just going to be $7. That's it, $7. And we're talking hundreds of pages of information. Like I said, 45 done-for-you workouts. And to me, I like to think it's a no-brainer. And that's why I wanted to make it that price, because I want people to have a taste of this style of training and realize that if they follow a properly planned movement progression, like my PM3 method highlights, they're going to get better results than they ever thought they could doing any sort of training routine, because nobody's talking about these movement progressions other than like gymnasts, and usually people look at gymnasts and they're just so advanced that they get turned off by it, right? Mm-hmm. They're thinking about iron cross movement progressions and stuff like that, so they get like a little bit wigged out because they'll never be able to do the iron cross. But a pistol, you and I both know that everybody can work up to doing a pistol, right?
Yeah. I mean, I couldn't do one when I started. I followed certain progressions through in order to be able to get it, and that really is especially with body weight training, is people don't understand the progressive movements that you need to do. If you can't do one skill but you can do another, there's some sort of progression you need in the middle in order to bridge that gap, and there might be multiple different steps.
And it's not just the bodyweight training. You notice how
it's
in the weighted manual, like I really took a progressive approach to Olympic lifting, which is something I don't really see very often either, where people don't teach you those foundational movements before taking you to a more complex movement that requires more mobility, strength, power, balance, coordination, blah, 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 right?
Mm-hmm.
So, anyway.
Yeah. So everyone that is interested in this, and, if you listen through this, I'm sure you're quite interested in $7. What do you have to lose? There's a money-back guarantee on this, I imagine, as well?
Yeah. Again, a 60-day money-back guarantee. So, if for some reason you follow the Warrior lower body system and you don't get the best results in your lower body ever, you can just request a full refund, and I'll gladly give you your money back, and we can still be friends.
Right. So you can check that out. Go to legendarystrength.com/go/warrior-legs. I called it warrior legs instead of the lower body just because
that's all right.
Legs are shorter. I hope you don't mind. Okay, so yeah, definitely check that out. And we did have one other special announcement we wanted to make. Tyler has his own podcast at garagewarrior.com. I have this one here, but we also started another podcast on a different topic together. That's over at fitnessmoney.com. And what our plan is on this website and this other podcast that we're doing is teaching people how to build online businesses or offline businesses, really anyone in the fitness profession, whether you're a coach or a personal trainer or want to do products online like we've been talking about here. We're going to be teaching you how to do all that, and we've been going the past few weeks, so definitely be sure to check out the website and sign up and get on that podcast because we're sharing a lot of really cool information and having a lot of fun doing it.
Yeah, it's a pretty cool new thing that we're trying. It's just really simple. It's for people who want to break into the fitness industry and haven't figured out how, or it's just for the frustrated trainer who's just kind of sick of living from paycheck to paycheck and wants to figure out how to monetize his passion, which is what we absolutely love doing. And that's another side of everything is that we love teaching other people how to become better, and one of those components is in their financial lives.
Yeah, I mean, everything, it really shouldn't just be so narrowly focused on one thing like being strong. I mean, that's great and everything if that's what you want to do, but really both myself and Tyler, I know, and many of the other people I surround myself with, they're all really seeking to get the most out of life and so many different things. And, having a business can be a big part of that because that gives you the financial freedom. You want to be able to do all these things you want to do, to go to training seminars and get the best information and do everything you possibly want to do. So that's what that podcast is all about. So definitely check that out if you are in this business and are looking to bring it to another stage. Tons of great, solid, free information. Highly recommended. Okay, so thank you very much, Tyler. Once again, to check out the Warrior lower body program, go to legendarystrength.com/go/warrior-legs. If you download the podcast from the website, you also see a link there. There'll be some videos and other articles about this on the website as well. Thank you very much, Tyler.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me on, Logan. I'm looking forward to the future.
Me too.